Bulinski Mathison with the Naked Grief.
And I'm Melissa Bishop with Wholehearted Studio. We've come here together to bring you the Raw Experience podcast. We're here because grief isn't just about death, it's about losing pieces of your fundamental self. And this happens through countless experiences. Disenfranchised grief is the kind of grief that leaves you feeling guarded, unsafe, wondering if your pain even counts. Whether it's job loss, divorce, friends and friendships ending, dreams that died, and any loss the society deems.
Unrecognizable?
Yes, thank you. We believe every loss deserves to be honored. If you're here, you're not alone in that feeling.
So let's start with something most people don't realize. Grief is like an iceberg. What everyone sees on the surface is just a tiny piece of what's really happening underneath. Now, you've probably heard some big, scary words thrown around when people talk about grief and even trauma. Melissa, when someone hears terms like PTSD or hypervigilance, what's really going on there?
I'm so glad you asked because I love clarifying these buzzwords. So, trauma isn't just about a car accident, it's about everyday losses that reshape us. PTSD, it's when your nervous system stays stuck in survival mode, where you're not thriving, you're surviving. Think about that, folks. Triggers, those unexpected moments that transport you back. Hypervigilance is when you're always waiting for the next shoe to drop. All these lead to deeper relationship issues and fears, such as attachment issues, when you have trouble trusting people after loss, abandonment wounds, that fear of being left again. We all know that all too well. Complicated grief, when healing feels impossible. Secondary losses, everything else that changes when one thing ends. And then it all becomes compounded, right? And then we have all of this unprocessed grief that's built up. All of us, all of this brings us to the heart of what we're really talking about: disenfranchised grief. So, Karen, what exactly is that?
Yeah, disenfranchised grief can be defined as losses that society doesn't recognize or validate. It wasn't until I was in grad school that I even knew that there was a term for this. And yet,
I didn't know it. I was like, what's that?
and it's just a really big word to say, hey, any loss that changes your life is
Right.
disenfranchised. So that's everything. Like we talked about earlier, it's job loss, pet loss, divorce, breakups, miscarriages, friendships ending, but it's even the other stuff. I know that identity crisis is something that we've talked about.
Yeah.
It's the ending of something, retirement, empty nesting, graduation. It's the end of one thing and the beginning of another. And that can be terrifying. And you're grieving those lost connections while you're trying to embrace a new chapter. And the problem with disenfranchised grief is that no one acknowledges it. And how do you heal from something that isn't acknowledged? Your grief is real, even if others don't see it. So, Melissa, once people realize that they are experiencing this valid grief, where do they even start healing from something that society isn't acknowledging?
Well, I love how we can walk into trauma living in the body. That is where the holistic approach comes into play. Typically, our society drives this model of override it with the mind, override it with the mind. But when you think about it, right, trauma is stored all through your body. So the approaches that I use, like Reiki, breath work, EFT tapping, crystal healing, my RLP program, which uses kinesiology to identify where trauma is stored in your body, and we use acupressure points to release it, all help us release it from our body so we're not discombobulated trying to override everything with our mind when our body keeps telling us, no, this isn't okay, this isn't okay. And we can't recognize where it's coming from. So it helps us make that connection. The other thing with spiritual healing is it connects us to something larger. It allows us to see our higher self and our authentic self. So sometimes the soul needs different medicine. And that's where Reiki is so beneficial. I always talk to people about my first Reiki experience. It was like my soul lit up. I didn't realize it was dead, but I knew something was missing. So that connection is amazing.
Well, I learned something last week from you. I didn't even know that Reiki could work on pets.
Yeah.
So my cat is going through, I don't know if it's allergies or asthma or pneumonia, but she's definitely got some breathing activity going on. And Melissa came by and did some Reiki on her. And yeah, granted, she's on some medicine too, but while she was doing the Reiki, I watched her breathing pattern change. I watched her seem less, I don't want to say aggressive, but she wags her tail a lot. And she didn't seem as tense. And I think it made it a lot easier for her to relax, to let everything else kind of take focus. So that was really, in the 20 minutes that you were working on her, I watched such a huge metamorphosis happen.
And this is where I would challenge everyone on this episode to think about you have a mind, you have a body, but you also have a spirit. So when you hear this whole phenomenon of mind, body, spirit healing, that's where I believe Reiki comes in strongly because it's healing that energetic, spiritual part of yourself. Oh, by the way, folks, you can't see this, right? So it's not tangible. So everybody's like, oh, this doesn't work, but it's phenomenal healing. So the chakras are related to our emotional and physical well-being, and if they're imbalanced, it's just like a part of your car not working, right? If your engine light is on or your ignition switch doesn't work, you can't work the entire car. It's the same thing with your body. If things aren't flowing smoothly, then you're not working.
Exactly. And it's interesting because, like, even when I was in school, we did a lot of evidence based procedures that we looked at and studies that were done and very clinical stuff. And and it works. But what's interesting is when you put coaching into it, it lightens the approach and it softens some of those therapies, like the importance of movement or release through activity or just doing something that gets your mind to stop focusing on that one dreadful thing that you can't get unstuck from. Uh, Doing something artistic and creative, or trying to play an instrument, or just listening to music because you're so focused on the words that are coming that you're thinking a little bit less on what's harboring in your mind. During COVID, I did a lot of paint by numbers because I'm not the artist. And I found myself focused so much on where are all the number ones that whatever it was that was weighing on me
Mm.
was pushed back. And then once it gets pushed into that distance and you revisit it again, it doesn't seem as heavy. And that's pretty releasing. It's why so many people recommend journaling. It's a way to release what you're holding on to. Um, Bibliotherapy, the art of reading, can help. But my favorite kind of therapy is cinema therapy.
Mhm.
And the reason I love that is because it's a way to identify with characters on a screen and what they're experiencing and kind of how it mirrors some of your own life experiences without having to really delve into your own heart space. And because sometimes we're just not ready for that. So we're doing something really exciting in the
Oh
next
God.
few podcasts because we picked a 30-year-old TV show, Friends, and noticed that out of their 236 episodes, almost all of them introduce some form of disenfranchised grief and how the characters rally together to help their friends get through that initial trauma.
Yeah, we can use that word now.
And how sometimes them not dealing with it on a regular and revisiting and trying to work through it just adds up into a lot of cumulative grief. which one character in particular, I'm not going to spoil anything, really shows us that throughout the series. And I've watched the episodes, I can't even countless times. And it hasn't been until recently that I'm watching it with a new set of eyes. So as we go through every episode throughout all these seasons, it should be pretty interesting to see what your take is on it too when you start rewatching these episodes. How different does the series look? And how much have these characters changed when you start really recognizing all of the traumas that they've held on to from childhood until we first meet them?
Yeah. And I'm so excited to do this because humor is such an important component in healing. I mean, it softens the blow sometimes, but it also allows you to see things through a different lens, so you're not as impacted by your current experience. And I wanted to come back to one thing before we end here is one of the important modalities I use is somatic movement, where you connect your mind to trauma within your body and you release it. So it becomes a full connection, not segregated. So we're excited to see you next time when we break down the first episode of